You say you're confident, but let me ask you something. Can you sit in silence while the room mocks you? Can you be ghosted, ignored, challenged, dismissed, and not chase? Can you hear your name twisted in private and still walk with composure in public? If you need to explain yourself, you are not confident. If you react when tested, you are not in control. And if your power disappears when the world withdraws its praise, then you never had power to begin with. You are borrowing it from approval. Confidence isn't a voice. It's a void, a stillness, a force that others sense without you needing to prove it. And the man who understands that, who holds his fire, delays his strike, and never reveals his next move, is the man that others learn to fear, even in his silence. You've been lied to. You were told to speak louder, to express yourself, to wear your confidence like armor on the outside, but true power doesn't scream, it waits. And Machiavelli knew this better than anyone. He wrote not for the soft, but for those who seek control in a world designed to strip it from them. In a court of liars, flatterers, traitors, and smiling enemies, the man who showed too much was the first to fall. The man who moved too quickly was the first to bleed. But the man who concealed everything, his feelings, his fears, his fury, ruled longer, because stillness terrifies those who can't understand it. So I'll ask you again, do you believe you're confident? Then show me what you can hold back. Show me what you can endure in silence. Show me the insult you don't answer, the test you don't flinch at. Show me what you let burn without reacting. That's confidence. Not the man who's always talking, but the one who makes everyone else talk about him because he's unreadable, unshaken, unapologetically still. This is not therapy. This is strategy. And if you want to rule the battlefield of attention, of women, of ambition, then you must master the most dangerous trait a man can possess: emotional self-containment, the power to move without being moved, the fire that burns under glass. That is the law. And today I will teach you how to use it like a weapon. The world has lied to you about confidence. They told you it was a look, a tone, a volume. They sold you the idea that the loudest man is the strongest, that the man who dominates every conversation is the one who holds the most power. But power does not broadcast. Power observes. Power listens. Power doesn't fill the silence, it uses it. And the most confident men I've ever seen were the ones who never had to announce their worth. They walked into rooms and created unease with their presence alone. You've been taught to perform, smile wider, speak faster, push harder. But what you haven't been taught, because it terrifies those who truly understand it, is restraint, the art of holding, the art of waiting, the art of letting others drown in the noise while you remain still. Restraint is not the absence of power, it is the hoarding of it. And in Machiavelli's world, it was the kingmaker. He warned, "He who is impulsive will often ruin himself." The man who responds too quickly reveals his pattern, and once your pattern is known, so is your weakness. Think about it. The men who rise too fast in court, in politics, in the game of influence, how do they fall? They speak too soon. They reveal too much. They react when insulted, defend when accused, explode when challenged. And in that emotional exposure, they invite their own collapse. But the restrained man, he is another species. He is unreadable. You do not know what offends him. You do not know what motivates him. You don't even know what he wants until you are already in his trap. That's confidence. It's not the man yelling into the void. It's the man who lets others speak first, then cuts through all of it with 5 words when it matters. In your relationships, restraint is the most erotic form of power. You think texting first shows initiative? You think explaining your feelings creates connection? No, it creates predictability. It removes tension. And what women crave is not consistency. They crave emotional gravity. They want to feel the man who doesn't flinch, the man who can hold chaos in his chest and still choose silence, the man whose attention is not free, not automatic, not begging to be returned. True confidence does not seek approval. It creates uncertainty. It makes others question what you're thinking, how you feel, what you'll do next. And in that mystery, in that space you create by refusing to speak, you become the center of their obsession, not because you begged for it, but because your restraint demanded it. You want to win this game? Then shut up. Let them talk. Let them rush. Let them reveal. And you sit there, calm, patient, unreadable, because the one who moves last often moves best, and the one who speaks least is the one they all listen to when he finally does. If I had to name the single most powerful trait of the truly confident man, it is this: emotional self-containment. Not charm, not courage, not ambition, because all of those are visible, vulnerable, and often performative. But self-containment? That is invisible power, power that does not leak, power that cannot be baited. It is the silent law behind every man who dominates without noise. You think strength is how much you can show. Machiavelli would tell you it is how much you can withhold. The prince who can master his own emotional storms, who can be insulted without lashing out, seduced without losing control, cornered without revealing fear, that prince is not just respected, he is feared. And fear, when balanced properly, is more durable than love. In The Prince, I wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But I did not mean to be cruel. I meant to be untouchable. Love makes you explain yourself. Fear makes them explain themselves to you. And that reversal, where others adjust their behavior to avoid disrupting your stillness, is the essence of real confidence. Not dominance, not aggression, containment. Look around. Weak men can't hold themselves. They overexpress. They overshare. They apologize before anything goes wrong. They text paragraphs to women who never earned their honesty. They chase clarity from people who already gave them an answer through silence. That is not confidence. That is desperation wrapped in performance, a need to be understood, a hunger to be accepted, a fear of abandonment disguised as openness. But you, if you are to rule yourself first and others second, must become like cold iron beneath silk. You let others speak, you listen, you nod, you process, but inside, your fire is locked behind steel. Your reactions are not seen, your motives are not leaked. Your frame is not shaken by external noise, feminine chaos, or emotional bait. You are the one in the room who sets the tempo by refusing to break rhythm. When a woman tries to provoke you and sees no reaction, she will feel something deeper than anger. She will feel your weight, your seriousness. When your enemies test you with lies, slander, theatrics, and you do not break posture, they will begin to doubt their own power, because emotional self-containment is not just discipline. It is dominance in its most elegant form. The man who contains himself contains the world, because when others speak from emotion, you respond from position. When others act from insecurity, you move from intention. And when others try to find your breaking point and can't even find your center, they begin to orbit around you, even if they hate you for it. Remember this: a lion doesn't roar to prove it's a lion. It remains still until movement is necessary. And when it does move, no one mistakes it for weakness. Weakness has a sound, and once you learn to hear it, you can't unhear it. It's the anxious text sent 5 minutes after being left on read. It's the nervous laugh after saying something bold. It's the overlong voice message explaining yourself to someone who stopped listening long ago. It's the man who cannot sit in tension, who cannot hold the discomfort of not being understood, not being praised, not being mirrored, and so he fills the space with noise, words, movement, apologies, begging disguised as communication. That is the death rattle of masculine confidence. Weak men think confidence is permission to talk more, but the truth is, when a man is truly confident, he speaks less, because he does not fear misunderstanding. He does not need to be rescued by reassurance. He does not ask for validation. He is the validation. Every time you open your mouth to explain what didn't need explaining, you train the world to see you as uncertain. Every time you justify yourself to someone who has already disrespected you, you teach them how to ignore you. And every time you reach towards someone who's pulling away, you confirm what they already suspected. You are not the prize. Machiavelli would call this the foolishness of the unguarded prince. In his desperation to win the hearts of the people, he begins to show them too much. He seeks their approval, he reveals his intentions, and in doing so, he makes himself vulnerable, not just to their love, but to their contempt, because nothing invites betrayal faster than a ruler who cannot hold himself. People do not follow the man who begs, they follow the man who waits. You may think your over-communication proves maturity, that it shows you are in touch with your feelings, that it prevents misunderstanding. But all it does is destroy polarity. It flattens mystery. It drains attraction. And it makes the people you most want to impress feel like they are above you, because only men who fear abandonment talk endlessly to avoid it. The strong man? He's accused and says nothing. He He's insulted and doesn't react. He's ghosted and doesn't double text. He sees her story online and doesn't flinch, because he understands something you must tattoo into your psychology. Attention is a currency, and noise is inflation. If everyone hears from you, no one values what you say. If every woman you like receives your constant stream of presence, no woman will feel your absence. And if you show up with noise every time someone doubts you, they'll never feel the force of your silence when it truly matters. Let them question your mood. Let them wonder if they've offended you. Let them sit in their own insecurity for once, because when you betray yourself with noise, you rob others of the chance to feel the cost of disrespecting you. Confidence doesn't explain, it endures. Confidence doesn't react, it reveals. Confidence doesn't chase, it compels. So if you want to be heard, stop talking. If you want to be respected, stop explaining. And if you want to be powerful, stop betraying yourself with every noise that seeks to prove you're okay. Power is not loud. It is not reactive. It does not announce its presence like a street performer hoping for applause. True power is quiet because it knows it doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't rush to respond. It doesn't fill the void. It lets the room twist around its stillness. Strategic composure is the clearest sign of internal authority, and every man who's ever ruled a room, a court, a woman, or a kingdom has mastered the pause before the move. When a man moves without composure, he telegraphs weakness. The faster you answer an insult, the more fragile you appear. The quicker you respond to pressure, the more easily you are seen as controllable. Think carefully. Why do you think those who rise to real positions of influence, whether in business, in war, or in seduction, are so unhurried? Because hesitation is not always weakness. Sometimes it is power assessing the field. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must know when to act the beast and when to act the man. But the beast does not roar constantly. It stalks. It observes. It waits. The prince who maintains his position is the one who doesn't act until the moment becomes necessity. And even then, he moves with precision, not passion. You think stillness is passivity. That's because you've only ever seen it from the outside. But stillness, when it comes from strength, creates discomfort in everyone who cannot mirror it. It forces the insecure to fill the silence. It turns the loud into children, scrambling to decode your lack of expression. When you're quiet, not from fear, but from control, you force others to reveal their hand while concealing your own. In the realm of male-female dynamics, this becomes lethal. Most men don't know how to be silent. The moment a woman pulls back, they react. She ignores a message and they send 3 more. She withdraws affection and they start explaining. And in every reaction, they confess something fatal. You have power over me. But the man who remains still, who doesn't respond, who continues his life without breaking stride, he becomes a question she cannot answer. And questions, unresolved, unprovoked, create obsession. This is why I say stillness is not absence. It is dominance in disguise. It is the refusal to let the external world dictate the tempo of your soul. It is the awareness that not every situation requires a response. That sometimes, the most powerful answer is no answer. Because the longer you stay composed, the more everyone around you begins to think that you're the one holding the invisible sword. So remain still when others rush. Remain unreadable when others emote. Remain unbroken when others break. And when the moment comes to strike, you won't need to raise your voice. You'll just need to move once, and the silence will speak for you. Power is not granted. It is developed. Through discomfort, through discipline, through deliberate subtraction of weakness. Emotional self-containment. This most powerful trait of the truly confident man is not something you are born with. It is forged in fire. It is carved into you every time you resist the urge to react, every time you choose silence over self-sabotage, every time you let tension linger instead of relieving it for their comfort. To cultivate this trait, you must first train your nervous system to remain still in chaos. Every time someone offends you, observe it without flinching. When a woman pulls away, let her. When your enemy provokes you, let him talk. You must build the muscle of internal stillness the way a warrior builds the body, through repetition under pressure. You start by letting the phone ring without answering. You hold your tongue in conversation, not to be polite, but to be sovereign. You endure the discomfort of not explaining yourself, even when every cell in your body screams for relief. That pain, that is you giving birth to control. Do you want to know why silence is so feared? Because most people speak to avoid themselves. They react to avoid introspection. They perform because being still would expose just how insecure they really are. So when you choose stillness, you become a mirror they cannot look into, and that makes you powerful. That makes you dangerous. Because now, they must deal with their own chaos, without your help, without your apology, without your validation. Machiavelli would advise you to develop this trait the way a prince sharpens a blade, not for constant use but for decisive moments. There will come a time when your ability to stay composed while others unravel becomes your greatest weapon. In war, in negotiation, in betrayal, in seduction, it is always the man who speaks last, who speaks least, who speaks only when ready, that commands the room. Now how do you weaponize it? You weaponize it by using your presence like a blade. You walk into a room without explaining why you belong there. You look her in the eye and say nothing when she tests you, because your gaze says more than her words ever could. You don't correct rumors, you let them wonder. You don't chase the one who left. You let her feel your absence as a punishment more profound than any insult. And when the world expects you to react, you let it collapse into silence. Because you are not the actor, you are the frame. You are not the noise. You are the stillness it tries to disrupt. You are not the man who begs for understanding. You are the man who becomes so composed they begin to question themselves. This trait is not passivity. It is a weapon of war. It is how the lion stalks before the kill, how the general waits before the siege, how the prince rules without needing to speak. It is not softness. It is a higher form of dominance, one that requires no performance, only presence. Cultivate it like your life depends on it, because in the world of Machiavelli, it does. Let me tell you the story of a man who never raised his voice and yet ruled every room he entered, not through charm, not through intimidation, but through the one trait his enemies and lovers could never break: emotional stillness. He was not born powerful. In fact, he began like most men do, reactive, eager to prove himself, addicted to validation. He used to over-explain when accused, over-apologize when misunderstood, and overshare in the hope of being known. And as you would expect, the world used it against him. Women pulled back once they realized his self-worth depended on their attention. Rivals saw through his defenses and baited him into mistakes. He believed his transparency made him authentic, but in reality it made him predictable. And predictability is death in the game of power. But then something happened, not an event, but a decision. He stopped reacting. He stopped chasing. He stopped trying to be understood. He studied silence like a weapon. He practiced saying less until his presence became heavier than his words. He learned that those who speak the most are not listened to, but those who speak last often define the conversation. When betrayed, he said nothing. When tested, he held eye contact. When ghosted, he disappeared completely. And slowly, everything began to shift. The same woman who dismissed him began watching his stories. Friends who had once taken him for granted became uncomfortable in his presence. New people treated him with caution, not because he was aggressive, but because he gave them nothing to play with. He had become a mirror without a reflection. You couldn't read him, you couldn't provoke him, you couldn't move him unless he allowed it. And then came the moment that changed everything. An old rival who once gloated after besting him publicly tried to shame him again at a gathering. The room went silent, waiting for the outburst, the defense, the emotional unraveling. But the man just stared. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5. Then he turned without a word and left the room. No reaction, no explanation, just absence. And for the rest of the night, no one spoke of the insult. They spoke only of the silence, because silence, when used by the right man, becomes a judgment no one can recover from. That night, the room did not remember what was said. They remembered how he made them feel. That's what power does. It doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply alters the temperature of a space by refusing to bend. This man won not because he fought back, but because he taught others that he could not be touched. And once the world learns that your emotions are not available to manipulate, they have no choice but to respect you or retreat. He said nothing, and he won everything. You've been taught that confidence is something you show, but I tell you now, real confidence is something you withhold. It is not what you give to the world that makes you powerful. It is what you deny it access to. Your emotional reactions, your explanations, your apologies, your desperation for clarity. A man who needs to be seen is a man waiting to be ruled. But a man who can walk through betrayal, rejection, failure, without flinching, that man is already king. Let others perform. Let them explain themselves. Let them collapse into noise. You will not, because you understand now. Stillness is not passivity. It is position, and once you move from position, you no longer ask for power. You impose it, silently. You no longer need to be loved. You are now the source of tension, the author of pace, the ruler of every room. You don't try to impress. When she pulls away, you don't chase. When they doubt you, you don't explain. When they test you, you don't react. Because you know, a man who controls his expression controls the entire frame. This is your advantage, this is your edge, this is your weapon, and the world is not prepared for it. So remember this, burn it into your skull. A lion does not roar when he walks, but everyone hears him anyway. If you feel this in your bones, if you're done being baited, broken, and bent, if you're ready to become the man who rules by presence, not noise, comment below, I am still. I am feared. Then close your mouth, straighten your back, and start moving like you were born